We are live.
All right. So, hello and good evening, everyone. So, seems like we are live. Let me just wait for a few seconds while the live stream begins. All right. So, first of all, I welcome all of you back to yet another fun and exciting session on our interactive platform, Spacetopia. So, as you all are aware, we currently have the Global Astronomy Month that is going on. And on this occasion of Global Astronomy Month, we have conducted several different types of sessions, Kahoot quizzes. We also have a couple of competitions which are going on, which I will talk about in a bit. And of course, we are coming almost towards the end of our Global Astronomy Month. So today's session, which we have, is a DIY based session, as you all are aware. And after this, we'll have one more session that is at the tail end of the month, that is on 30th of April. And we'll have a fun Kahoot quiz for all of you. Of course, that quiz is open to all grades, but we do suggest that you participate according to your grade itself. You can go to the Spacetopia page and check that out. So let me just share my screen and show you all what are the events that are coming up after this. So when you go to our Spacetopia page, of course, on our home page itself, you will be able to see the various sessions on Global Astronomy Month that have been conducted. I'm really sorry. So if due to any reason you have not been able to attend any particular session, make sure that you attend those sessions. Most of these sessions were actually free. However, a couple of sessions, especially the Globe at Night Masterclass, which was really interactive and it's really insightful. So do make sure that you check it out. And along with that, we, as you might know, we are already having this session right now. Okay, that is the Build It Up Helicopter Adventures. Apart from this, we have one more quiz that is coming up. That is the Quiz It Up Space Satellite Showdown. So we are lost in space. The page is lost in a black hole, it seems. So, well, no issues. It's completely fine if the page is lost in a black hole. So when you go to our Spacetopia page and dashboard, when you check out the upcoming live sessions, you'll be able to see the upcoming live, which is on 30th of April, right at this time, that is 6:30 p.m. Apart from this, we also have a couple of competitions which are going on. Many of you are actually asking even in the chat that what is this competition all about? Okay, so let me just give you a quick brief about that. So there are two competitions that are going on based on your grades. So if you are based in grades 2 to 5, then the astro painting competition is the one for you. While if you are based in grade 2 to grade 6 to 9, the poster making competition is the one to go for. And as you can see, we have already started getting submissions. And considering the feedback from many of you that you all require time, and for many of you the holidays are going to begin very soon, so considering that, we have actually extended the last day of submission to 20th of May. So now you have a whole lot of time, almost 3 weeks, over 3 weeks now, for preparing very nice kind of artwork or paintings or posters or whatever you want. And the results will be declared on 25th of May. So now you have ample time, and the timeline stays the same for both the competitions. Of course, each one of you will be able to participate only in one of these two competitions based on your grade, either the astro painting or the poster making. So make sure that you are actually submitting your artwork in the right link. So the link to both these competitions page has been sent to you on the live chat. Okay, so if by chance you're not able to see it, you can just refresh the page and you will be able to see the links on the Spacetopia live chat. Okay, and so, and of course, apart from this, these competitions are also present on our Spacetopia page. So when you go to our Spacetopia page, in the home page, you'll be able to see these competitions. So we'll put up the links to these, Padlet pages, even in the description of our competitions as well. So you'll be able to access those from the descriptions itself. Okay. So now that we have this cleared up, I hope that you all submit. As you can see, some submissions have already started coming up. So I hope that you all will go through the guidelines properly. All the guidelines, the evaluation criteria, everything has been given in this pinned post, the post which has been pinned by our company, that is STEM and Space, in both astro painting and poster making competitions. Sorry for that. So now that we have got this cleared up, let's come back to today's session, that is the helicopter adventures from Earth to Mars. So I can already see that few of you have started asking, a couple of questions about this session. So I'm going to address those eventually. So today's session is going to be a very fun DIY based session, which is Build It Up Helicopter Adventures from Earth to Mars. So as you can see, the title itself has Earth to Mars. So since we are going from Earth to Mars, and how can a helicopter take us from Earth to Mars? Do you really think that a helicopter has actually a helicopter can actually take us from Earth to Mars? Well, do let me know in the chat if you know any such kind of helicopter. Well, so before diving deeper into today's session, let me just show you all the materials that are required, since some of you have been asking to me on the chat. So first of all, you require the printout of the template that we had actually shared with you in the description of this session. So if you're not aware what I'm talking about, you can check out the description of this session right now. You can find the link to that template. Apart from that, you require the scissors, you require a paper clip, and you require a clay. Now, the paper clip and the clay are not, compulsorily, they are the same materials that you need to use. You can use some other material also. For example, instead of paper clip, you can use some very small light kind of item that can easily stick to your paper. Similarly, instead of clay, you can use any other such kind of material that can easily stick to the paper, but that's slightly heavier than the paper clip. Okay, so I've already started getting some answers such as rocket copter and okay. Okay, somebody is asking how do we start the live classes? So once you are on this page, instead of looking at the comments, you can just scroll up and click or tap on that session which is there in the center. Once you tap on it, your session will start playing. If you are seeing an unlock button, that means you'll have to unlock it first with your credits, and after that it will start. So now that we are clear with the materials, we will be doing the activity in a short while. So I just showed you the materials so that you become ready with those if you are not ready as yet. Okay, so now that you have the materials ready, let's dive deeper into the session. So I told you that we are discussing about helicopter adventures from Earth to Mars. So let's cover up a few things about the Earth. After that, we can eventually go to Mars, right? So how about I show you a quick footage and then I will ask you a couple of questions based on this. So I'm pretty sure that all of you must have heard this sound, if not very closely, but at least from a distance at some point in your life. When, you must have heard this, loud sound of a helicopter whenever it passes over your building or maybe over your school or over your city, anywhere. Or probably if you go near an airport, you might have seen taking, a helicopter taking off or probably landing. Okay. So do let me know that if you are aware that how is this helicopter actually able to fly out of any kind of land where it is present. For example, if you look at an aeroplane, then an airplane actually requires a very long strip of road, which we call as a runway. So it requires a long runway, at least 1 to 2 kilometers of runway where it moves at a very high speed and eventually it takes off, which all of you must have seen. Okay, some of you might have experienced also. But what is the stuff with this helicopter? How is this helicopter able to lift off from literally any place without having any such kind of runway or any such kind of proper base? Even if it is standing on grass, even if it's standing on a small piece of land, whether it's in a plain, whether it's on a mountain, whether it's in a valley, it can literally even lift off from the top rooftop of the buildings, provided that there is some kind of helipad that is actually made on it. So as some of you are answering, sometime it can be something like the birds itself, and that is true. To some degree, to some degree only, not completely, but to some degree, we have taken inspiration from the birds as well. And of course, a very important question that Kundan is also asking, that how does it fly when it is so heavy? Of course, a helicopter is hundreds of kilograms. Sometimes bigger helicopters can be thousands of kgs. So how is that thing able to fly out of nowhere? So that's what we are going to see, that what is the concept that makes the helicopter fly. So how does a helicopter fly? Well, there are actually certain different kind of forces that are involved in the flying of a helicopter. What are the forces? Well, the first force that is of course applicable to all the different kind of objects in our universe is the mighty gravity. Okay, so gravity is applicable to every physical thing that is present in the universe. So of course, the first force that is involved is gravity. Now you might think, how is gravity involved in flying? Well, I have not claimed that the gravity is involved in flying. All I've claimed is that gravity has some role which we have to at least counteract so that our helicopter goes up. Because if you divide the motion of the helicopter into two parts, then the first is that the helicopter needs to go up. That means it has to go against this gravity. And that's where the upward force comes, that is called as a lift. And the other motion that the helicopter has is moving forward. So first it goes up into the air and then it eventually moves forward. For moving forward, again, when it tries to move forward, there will be a drag that it will face. And to counteract that drag, it will actually have a thrust. So these are the four important forces that are involved in the flying of a helicopter: gravity, lift, thrust, and drag. Now, let's just look at each of these forces one by one. How are these forces actually involved in the flying of a helicopter? So let's say I have a nice, cute little helicopter on the top of a building. So when this helicopter is at rest, that means when this helicopter is exactly standing on this helipad, what is happening is that continuously the gravity is pulling it downwards. That means all the force is actually acting in the downward direction. So helicopter is naturally not moving. So to counteract this gravity, the helicopter first spins its big fan that it has on its head. And when that fan spins, what happens is that a force gets generated against this gravity. Okay. So what is this gravity? Gravity is the force that attracts an object towards the earth or any such body that many of you must have learned in your school lessons as well. To counteract this gravity, now what happens is that, let's say that now I start spinning the blades or spinning the fans of the helicopter. What do these blades do? When they start spinning, they eventually take the helicopter upwards. That means the helicopter actually gets lifted up. And that's why the force is called as a lift, a force that is acting against the gravity. So it is a force that pushes a body upwards against the gravity of Earth. So that is what lift is. When the fans are moving, the air moves in such a way that there is a lift that gets generated. And the lift is able to carry the helicopter against that gravity. And this is also the reason why you see that these helicopters usually have fans or blades which are much larger than compared to the helicopter. You must have seen that. Bigger helicopters have even bigger blades. So they have bigger blades so that they are able to lift up this entire heavy thing. As many of you are saying, it's so heavy, so how will it actually move upwards? Well, because of the fan, because of the high speed at which it moves. And that is why you are able to hear that sound of the fan even when you are, several kilometers away from the helicopter, simply because it is actually generating a lot of power so that it is able to lift the helicopter against the gravity. Now our helicopter has come into the air, but now it needs to move forward. So for moving forward, the third force that gets generated on this is called the thrust. So it is a force that pushes a body against the drag when it moves through a liquid or a gas. So all the thrust gets generated due to the power that is present in the engines. So just like our bikes, just like our cars, helicopters also have engines. So the engines generate the power that creates the thrust and takes the helicopter forward. And as the helicopter moves forward, of course, as it keeps moving forward, there is another force that keeps acting on it constantly in the direction opposite to that of the thrust. And that is the drag. So drag is the force that actually acts opposite to the thrust. And It opposes the motion of the body when it moves through a liquid or gas. Why am I using the term a liquid or gas? That's because these thrust and drag forces are applicable in liquids as well. The behavior of these forces is exactly same whether you are moving an object through liquid or through gas. Right now we are discussing helicopters, so it is natural that it's moving through the air or the atmosphere, that means gases. But do remember that these forces act in a similar way when any object is trying to move through a liquid as well. Okay. Now, a very important property that makes this helicopter very, very unique. That means it is kind of one of the most magical feature of helicopter, you can say, which is makes it completely different from all the other means of transport. And that is helicopter can stay in the air by balancing all these four forces. Literally, currently, there is no other mode of transport that can actually literally stay in thin air without either falling or moving up without even going anywhere. It can literally stay stable in thin air by balancing all these four forces. That is the gravity, the lift, the thrust, and the drag. So when it is able to balance all these four forces, it is able to actually remain in the air itself. Okay, so air also kind of acts as a liquid itself. Some of you are saying that air acts like a fluid, so it's called a superfluid. Well, air technically is not superfluid, but yeah, there are certain materials called superfluid. But yeah, the gases in our atmosphere do act like a liquid itself. And that is why we have the common term fluid as well, which we use for liquids and gases. But for most of you, you may not have been introduced to the word fluid as such. So that is why we have not used the term fluid. So I hope that that gives you an idea of how the helicopter is actually able to fly despite being so heavy and what makes it so unique. Now that you have understood the forces involved in the flying of a helicopter, let's just quickly look at the important parts of a helicopter. So the first important part that a helicopter has is, of course, the cockpit, the open area inside where the pilot and the other passengers, if they are present, they will be sitting. And then we have the huge fan, which is called as the main rotor. So the huge fan or the blade that we are talking about, that is technically called as the main rotor. So that is the big fan that is actually creating most of the lift. Then comes a small fan that is present in many of the helicopters, may not be present in some helicopters as well, but most of the modern helicopters do have this. That is called as the tail rotor. So tail rotor actually helps it to move very quickly. It helps it to maneuver very quickly, take right or left turns, or take very sharp turns here and there. That is what the role of this tail rotor is. Apart from the fact that it also helps to generate a force in a sidewise direction. Then comes a handle-like structure, which is present below many of the helicopters, that is called as the landing skids. Now, in some of the helicopters, you might have observed that there are wheels as well. Okay, so do not get confused. If there are wheels, that simply means that it is actually able to move on the ground. It doesn't provide any extra feature to the helicopter. It doesn't mean that the helicopter is different from this one. It's basically based on purpose. If the helicopter needs to simply land on surfaces, then it will have landing skids. However, if a helicopter also needs to move on a piece of land, let's say it needs to move somewhere when it lands on a runway or when it lands in such kind of surface, then often the landing skids are replaced with wheels. Okay. And of course, there is this long tail-like structure, which is known as the tail broom. The tail broom, and along with that, there's the belly portion of this helicopter is actually the container which contains the engine and the fuel. So the engine and the fuel are actually present in this belly portion, while the tail broom contains some more controls and some more wirings and the entire machinery, which is actually making it possible for the helicopter to fly. So I hope that that gives you a clear idea about the different parts of a helicopter. And now that you all are aware of the forces involved in helicopter, the different parts of a helicopter, how about we make our own paper helicopter to understand the concepts behind the flying of a helicopter. So that's what brings us to today's activity that many of you have been waiting for. And for this, as I had shown you earlier as well, these are the materials that are required. So you need the printout of the template, scissor, paperclip, and clay. Once again, I repeat, paperclip and clay are not exactly important. They will be just used for experimental purposes. Later, I will tell you. The two main things are template and scissor. So let's now go to the first step. So the first step is to cut the template printout along the dotted lines as shown below. So in your template printout, you can see there are basically two helicopter templates that have been printed. So you need to cut along the dotted lines. You can also see there is scissor icon, which has been actually shown on the dotted lines. So and then just cut along the dotted lines. Make sure that you are first of all cutting the two rectangular pieces separate from this paper helicopter template, and then you start cutting the internal dotted line. That means the line which is present between A and B. So please do not cut it beforehand. Just cut out and separate the two rectangular helicopter sheets, and then we will start cutting that portion. And that's what we'll do in the second step. So the step 2 is to cut along the dotted line between parts A and B, which I was telling you just now. That first you need to cut these two rectangles and keep them separate from the paper helicopter template. And then you can go for cutting this dotted line, which is present between the sections A and B. Okay. So in the video, I am actually doing the activity for both the pieces parallelly, but it's not compulsory for you to do it parallelly right now. You can just cut out one of the two helicopter pieces from the template, and then you can start performing the activity in just one of the two templates. In the other one, you can cut out later after the session is done. Okay. So this is how we are cutting along the dotted line, only up to that portion where the solid line is present. So this was pretty easy. Let's move to the third step. Now, you need to cut along the dotted lines on the top of parts X and Y. That means there are two small dotted lines, which you can see at the top of the two parts, which are labeled as X and Y. That's where you also need to cut along the dotted lines, only till the portion where the dotted lines are present. Do not cut less or more. Okay, be very precise with the cuts, because these cuts are the only thing that will determine how effectively your helicopter is able to fly. Okay, so please make sure that you are doing the cuts very precisely. Okay, now once you have cut along the dotted lines and the top of X and Y, now the fourth step is really important. That is the folding step. So even if you are not here in this step yet, please just wait for a second and watch this step carefully. Okay. So what is happening is that you need to fold the parts A and B along the solid lines. In one helicopter, you can fold the entire parts A and B. In the other helicopter, you can fold the parts A and B only till half of their lengths. Basically, what you need to do is that, as you can see, let me just pause it here and let me just show it to you. As you can see, in one of the two templates, what I have done is that I have folded along the entire length of blades A and B. These A and B basically will act as the blades of our helicopter. So we are folding the entire length till the solid line, which is actually drawn below A and B. But in the other one, what I am doing is that, just to perform an experiment, I am actually reducing the length of the blades to half by folding these A and B parts only till half of their lengths. Okay, so it's not necessary for you to be 100% precise, that you need to measure with a ruler and then you need to fold it exactly in half, but make sure that you are roughly doing it at the halfway mark between the top of that blade and the solid line that has been drawn. Just make sure when you are folding it at that angle in which the two lines have been drawn. For both blades A and B, you can see that the two solid lines are not straight lines. They are slightly bent at an angle. So when you are folding till half, make sure that you are folding exactly parallel to those two bent lines. Okay. So I'll just play the video once again so that it becomes clear to all of you that how I'm folding. So there were a couple of you who were asking that the date on the poster still says 20th of May or something like that. But you can check out the link which we have shared right now on the Padlet page. You can check out the last date of, the last date of submission has been extended till 20th of May, and the result date is now on 25th of May. Okay, so please do not worry if you are seeing the earlier dates that might not have been updated yet. We'll update it on our website as well. As you all can see, we are again sharing the links for both the astro painting and the poster making competitions on the live chat. So you all can check it out once again. Okay. And when you go to these, you can check out the pinned post. In the pinned post, it has been mentioned that the last date of submission is 20th of May, and the result declaration date is 25th. So make sure that you pour out all your creativity and all the knowledge that you have about that particular subject. I suggest do some research so that you get some good, some unique points, some unique idea about that. Okay, please do not create AI generated artwork. We have told that in the guidelines as well, but please make sure that you do not, you know, give us AI generated artworks, because we do have mechanisms by which we can detect if it's AI generated. Okay, and you will be in that case disqualified, and your artwork will not be considered for evaluation. And since I had not mentioned it earlier, let me also mention that the top 5 winners in both the competitions will be actually rewarded with exciting prizes, and there will be certificates for all of you, by the way. So participation certificates will be for all of them, but winning certificates will be for the top 5 winners along with exciting prizes. So do make sure that you do your best in these competitions, in whichever you are participating. Of course, make sure you are participating only in that in which grade you belong to. Okay. So now once you are done folding these parts, now it's time to fold the parts X and Y along the solid lines. Okay. So you can fold the two parts X and Y along the solid lines in the way that I'm showing you right now in the video. Okay. Now, as you can see, basically when you are folding X and Y, of course, first when you fold X, and after that when you fold Y, the Y automatically will go over the X flap. And finally, you need to fold the part Z in the other direction. That means in the way that you are seeing in this video. Now, once you have folded, you can do the same for both the templates for which you are doing. Now, for folding the X, Y, and Z parts, you do not need to fold them to half or something like that. You can fold them in entirety along the entire line, which has been given to you. So, Kundan is asking, is digital artwork allowed for poster making? Yes, for poster making, if just make sure that after the session, you visit the link for the poster making that has been shared with you all in the chat. All the detailed guidelines are mentioned, that what are we expecting, what is the way in which you can prepare your artwork. Okay, for astro painting, it has to be completely handmade, but for poster making, it can be handmade or digital as well. But digital doesn't mean that you can just generate something on a computer and download it. Digital simply means that probably you can use, iPad, or if you're expert with that, you can use iPad or pencil, or you can use some kind of online tool also. Of course, on your computer, you can use some online tools, but make sure that it's not AI generated or it's not copied from somebody else's work. What is the point of winning a competition by copying others' work, right? Try to win something with your own caliber. Then probably you can boast it off in your school and among your friends as well, right? Now, once you have folded these parts, finally, it's time to actually go to the testing phase, where we take both the helicopters to a height of about 8 to 10 feet and release them. So when I take both the helicopters to this height, what is happening is that, let me just replay the video because it went too quick. As you can see, since I made two helicopters, one helicopter in which the entire, blades A and B were folded, while in the other one, only half of the blades A and B were folded. So what you need to do is that you can take both the helicopters to the same height, about 10 feet, and you can try to release them. When you release it, do try to record and see that which one is falling faster. So if I show this video to you in slow motion, then let me see if you can get that which one is falling faster and which one is taking some time to fall. So if you notice closely, then the helicopter in which I had folded the entire blades A and B actually fell much slower when compared to the one in which the blades were folded only till the half of their lengths. And that happened because the longer blades actually gave more amount of spins. If you notice closely, let me just replay it once again. The ones with the longer blades actually spins much faster and produces more amount of spin as well. And now you get the answer to the question that some of you are asking, that why are there so long blades? Because longer blades or longer rotor blades means that more amount of lift will be generated and the helicopter will be able to stay in the air for more amount of time. So the size of the blades are exactly important, just like we had discussed earlier. So I believe that that gives you a clear idea of how helicopter works. But apart from this variation, that is variation in the size of the blades, there are some other variations also which you can do and test your paper helicopter. So what are the other variation? what you can do is that when you are doing your own testing, do note down if it is spinning clockwise or anti-clockwise. Is there any kind of change that you can do so that instead of clockwise, it starts rotating in the opposite direction? Or if it was rotating anti-clockwise, it starts rotating in clockwise direction. What kind of variation will you do for that? Secondly, you can also test if it is falling straight or is it drifting in the air. For example, the one which happened with me right now, when I released both the helicopters, the one with the longer blades actually was drifting in the air for quite some time, while one with the shorter blades fell almost straight through the air to the ground immediately. Okay. And there are some other parameters also which you can try to change and test your helicopter. And this is where your paper clip, clay, or such kind of materials can come in handy. But since I had told that it's not compulsory, you can use those materials later on also to test your helicopter. Of course, you can change the length of the blade. You can test short versus long. You can also change the shape of the blade. How? Well, take a scissor and cut along the corners, because right now the corners are complete sharp rectangles. What you can do is that you can cut along the corners. So what will happen is that you will get some round rectangles, or maybe you can cut even further and you can convert your blade into an oval shaped blade, and then test out what is the effect of the oval shaped blade on the flying of your paper helicopter. Okay. And apart from that, you can also add weight at the bottom, the portion where you have folded the fold Z. Okay. The portion where you have folded Z, over there, you can actually add some weight by attaching a paper clip, and then you can see, or by attaching a clay ball, because a clay will be much heavier than a paper clip. And then just find out that what is the time that the paper helicopter is now taking compared to no weight. So these are the various ways in which you can actually test out your helicopter. Okay. And you can actually see that what is the impact of these kind of variations on the flying of a helicopter. So now that we have understood the concepts behind helicopter, now you have performed an activity also. You have realized what is the importance of these parameters in a helicopter. If you remember, the title of our session was From Earth to Mars. So now that we are on already sitting on Earth, how about I take you all, lift you all up to Mars? And that's where I introduce you to an actual helicopter that is present even on Mars. So I'm sure that all of you must have seen helicopters on Earth. All of you know that there are almost all the different kind of terrains have been covered up by helicopters on our Earth. But interestingly, there is also a helicopter that has been sent on Mars, and that helicopter is called Ingenuity, which also a couple of you had actually responded in the chat in the beginning. I had seen that. So let me give you a quick glimpse into the Ingenuity helicopter that has been sent on Mars. So this is the short promo of the Mars helicopter Ingenuity that was actually created by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of NASA. So this is an official video from NASA itself where they give you a quick glimpse into this Ingenuity helicopter, which they had actually sent. So let's just quickly have a glimpse into the fact that how they actually managed to send a helicopter on Mars. That's because there's a big challenge of flying on Mars. Can you just let me know in the chat what is that big challenge which is actually there, especially for a vehicle like helicopter on Mars? Meanwhile, I can see that yes, Kundan has told me, and he has given a very good answer, that if you fold the two blades in the opposite direction, that means instead of folding the fold A inwards and fold B outwards, you can fold the two opposite way. That means fold A outwards and fold B inwards, and your helicopter will start moving in the opposite direction. So you can actually change the direction in which you are folding the blades, and you can control the direction in which your helicopter spins. And I can see that Vishal said that if you go up, I typed Ingenuity Mars helicopter. That's right, Vishal. That's what I told, that I had seen, apart from Vishal, there were also a couple more students who had actually commented Ingenuity helicopter when I had asked in the beginning of the session if you are aware about any kind of helicopter that has been actually sent to space or on Mars. So that is correct. That is the Ingenuity itself. So Keshav is actually, answering, and that is absolutely correct. And that is the thin atmosphere. While the gravity is also less, that is also correct. Kundan is saying, isn't the gravity different? That is absolutely correct, Kundan. How will the helicopter work? But gravity is the second of our worries. The first most important thing that we need to actually take care of when designing a helicopter for Mars is the thin air. Mars has very thin air, just about 1% of the Earth's atmosphere. And as you have already seen by now in this session, that the air or the gases actually play a very important role in lifting the helicopter. If there is no air, there will be no lift that will be generated. Even if the blades move at very high speed, if there is no air, there will be no lift that is generated, and the helicopter will remain in its landing position. And that is why the first challenge is that we have to build the helicopter in a way that it is able to fly even through that thin air. It's not like Mars doesn't have any atmosphere, but it's extremely thin compared to the Earth's atmosphere. But it does have an atmosphere. That is what is important. It's not like it doesn't have any gases, like the moon, for example. It doesn't have any atmosphere. Okay. But Mars does have gases. Mars does have an atmosphere, although very thin. So even if it has thin, then can we do something so that our helicopter actually is able to fly over there? Now, just imagine that if the atmosphere is so thin, then the surface will be very clearly visible. And that is why whenever you see pictures of Mars compared to Earth, you will often be able to see clouds and many other such kind of atmospheric phenomena on the Earth pictures. But on Mars pictures, you'll be able to see almost the land very clearly. Okay, that's because the atmosphere is very thin. So there is nothing to obstruct that light. So if you look at this Ingenuity, then there are certain very important properties and some very important features of Ingenuity that actually make it possible for it to fly even on Mars. Now, coming to the point which some of you are asking about gravity, just imagine, kids, gravity was a force that we actually need to counteract. Since the gravity is almost half on Mars, it's actually beneficial to us. Okay, so flying a helicopter on Mars is easier from gravity point of view, but from atmosphere point of view, it's much, much more difficult. And that's where its unique design comes into play. If you look at this Ingenuity, you can see there are two sets of blades that have been actually provided. Apart from the top panel is not a blade. The two black ones in the middle are the blades, and both of them actually move in opposite directions. Okay, that's how it creates even extra lift. Even on some Earth helicopters, you might have noticed that there are two sets of blades, one placed above the other. That's how it is able to generate even more lift. Secondly, there are some other factors as well. So let's just quickly see one by one. So Ingenuity was actually the first aircraft to fly on another planet. It searches for areas where the rovers cannot reach. So you might be aware that we already have a few rovers which are actually moving on the surface of Mars, but there are many areas where the rovers will not be able to go. For example, in some kind of valley, in some kind of, small kind of holes, or small kind of craters or depressions. Okay, in those regions, the rover will not be able to examine the surface. That's where this Ingenuity comes into play. And let me also tell you all that this Ingenuity helicopter is actually very small in size. It's not that big. It's actually very small in size. Okay, it can easily fit in very small amount, any very small crevices and very small depressions that are present on Mars surface. How is it able to fly? Well, the blades are actually folded at very steep angles to generate more lift in less air. So instead of exactly horizontal blades, what scientists have done is that they have actually folded the blades at very steep angles. And that is why it is able to generate even more lift, even in the presence of that thin atmosphere. The blades, as I told, are much bigger compared to its body. Okay, don't compare it to actual helicopters. Compared to the body, compared to the amount of weight that it has to carry, the blades are actually pretty huge, and they spin 10 times faster than the Earth helicopters. Just imagine how fast those blades are actually moving. 10 times faster than the Earth helicopters. So these are the reasons that actually have made Ingenuity possible to fly successfully even on Mars. So as of January 18, 2024, it actually conducted 72 successful flights covering over 2 hours of flying. 128 minutes means 2 hours of flying. Okay, so that's the amount of flight that this helicopter could actually take. So what happened on Jan 18, 2024? Well, while landing, actually it fell off and one of its blades actually broke down. And that is the reason that although the helicopter is still there on Mars surface, it is no more able to fly, unfortunately. Okay, but do remember that it actually flew over 2 hours. It gave us some amazing pictures, as you were seeing in that video, also in that promo video, how it was clicking the pictures just from some aerial pictures, not from a height of hundreds of kilometers, but from a height of just a few meters to probably 1 to 2 kilometers. So that was the very important characteristic feature about Ingenuity. So I believe that that gives you an idea of how this helicopter Ingenuity has played so much important role in giving us so much amount of information and data about Mars. And similar to this, right now space agencies, not only NASA, but even European Space Agency and even ISRO is actually planning to send, helicopter or helicopter-like structures, for example, drone-like structures on Mars and even other moons, for example, certain moons to find life over there. But they are actually researching over the science, because on Mars, at least, atmosphere is present, but in our moon, as well as in many of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, there is no atmosphere actually which is present. So it's very difficult, as you already saw. Without air, it's almost impossible for a helicopter to fly off. But who knows? Some kind of technology might be there, and scientists may develop some kind of principle through which even those helicopters are able to fly in such kind of surfaces. So with that, I hope that that gives you some real helicopter adventure from Earth to Mars. So thank you all so much for joining. As we have already announced, the astro painting and poster making competitions are live right now. The link to both of them have been shared, in the Spacetopia live chat. So you can check that out. And you can go to our Spacetopia page as well to check out those links. You can go to each of the sessions, and in the description of each of those two pages, you'll be actually able to find the links as well. And currently you can see, even once again, we have shared the link to both the competitions. Last date to submit your artwork for both the competitions is 20th of May. Okay, so please do remember it's 20 May. And the same date has also been written even in the pinned post in these links. So do make sure you visit these links, and we hope to see you in the next session where we'll have a nice fun Kahoot, and we hope to see you again. So thank you all so much for joining.